Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're taking a look at a game that I probably should have reviewed a long ass time ago, but fuck it, I'm doing it now, and that happens to be Gokuu Densetsu Magic Beast Warriors on the PS1. And it was developed and published by Allumr and was released in 1995 and only in Japan. So yeah, a very early release game on the PS1. And it's a fighting game, a genre that I haven't covered in quite a while. But I should mention that the company Allumr, this is actually not the first fighting game that they ever made. In fact, they actually made one before called Blandia for the arcade. And despite it having a very bland name, it actually looks like a pretty cool fighting game. I may check that out at some point. But anyways, back to this weirdo one. So this game is based after the story of the Journey to the West, but if it was mixed in with some Sentai shit. So think of things like Power Rangers or Kamen Rider, like all that type of stuff, but with Journey to the West, and if it was like super over the top and ridiculous. So that's the game in a nutshell, and as for the story, well, to be honest, I can't really find much info on the story, but after witnessing this shit, I can say that no explanation is gonna cut it. Like, this is the type of game that could really only exist in the 90s, so yeah. Anyways, let's just get right to the characters in this game. So the main character is pretty obvious, it's Son Goku. Then you got the pig guy, you got some like demonic bird guy, I forget his name. And then you got this female character, who I believe is Princess Iron Fan. I mean, it would make the most sense. And then there's Sha Wujin, or what I like to call him is Epic Beard Man. Then you got the Bull Demon King, then you got a Tiger guy and a Dragon guy, and finally, I think this is supposed to be Bai Gujin, but then again, her design is so, like, out there that it could really be anyone, but I'm pretty sure it's her, because it is the final boss. So if you're familiar with the story, then it has all the familiar characters, but, you know, if they're, like, extremely exaggerated. And as for the two modes, yeah, you only get two, being story mode and versus mode. Yeah, this game is so good that fuck options, who needs that shit? And obviously, I don't need to explain what story mode and versus mode is, but anyways, so now, let's get right to the gameplay. So it's a 2D fighting game, similar to Street Fighter, where you got high kick, high punch, and low punch, or in this case, more like high weapon and low weapon, but you know. And all the characters have special moves indicated with button prompts, which they actually show you on the character select screen, so that's nice of them to do. So when you first start, you only have Son Goku as a playable character, and you gotta beat the crap out of the pig guy, but then after that, as you progress through the game, you actually get to play as some of the other characters. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like doing an arcade run where you have to use like one character, but then as you get farther through the arcade run, you can like switch to another character and possibly get like their endings. It's very different. But the one thing that is unfortunate though, is that whenever you lose as a character that is not Son Goku, you actually can't use him for the remainder of the arcade run. So therefore the only character that you can actually like keep continuing fighting as is Son Goku. Although you do get limited continues, so yeah, be careful of that. Also, the game's default difficulty is pretty damn hard, at least for me it is, and keep in mind, I am no fighting game expert here, so I actually found that like the third stage and up is where the game gets pretty tough for me. But the first two stages though, I can beat them no problem, they're easy shits. And this goes back to what I said earlier, that yeah, it is a little unfortunate that this game has no option, so there's no difficulty setting. So dare I say that they pulled a FromSoft on this game? Nah, that joke's way overdone, you know, the whole, it's the Dark Souls of blah blah blah. Well, anyways, the whole point I'm trying to make here is that if you're like me and are like not that great at fighting games, you may die a lot in this game. But if you're like really good at fighting games, like you can like beat them all on like the hardest difficulty, then yeah, I guess you can challenge yourself with this one. So yeah, the settings in this game are like the most basic as it can get. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the game's controls. And the controls in this game are surprisingly not bad for what they are. So the phase buttons are obviously the different attacks that you get to do, and then if you hold back, that allows you to block. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a very basic 2D fighter. But as for the feeling of them, well, it definitely is very playable, but it's not the most smooth 2D fighter I've ever played. Like, it's no like Street Fighter Alpha 2 and 3 or anything like that. but it doesn't feel stiff, it doesn't feel delayed, it also doesn't have like horrible hit detection or anything like that. And the special moves are responsive, and same thing as just doing regular ass attacks. I'm actually kind of surprised that the game plays as well that it does, mostly because of like the way how the sprites work with their animation. It makes it look like that it's awkward, but it doesn't feel awkward when you're actually playing it. I don't know, that's the best I can come up with for that, but yeah, really though, like, the controls in this game are really not that bad at all. Like, sure, it's not, like, the best 2D fighter I've ever played in terms of controls, but it's definitely not the worst. You could do a hell of a lot worse. Actually, you could definitely do a lot worse. It's called Twin Goddesses on the PS1. That game is fucking awful. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the graphics, and yeah, this is gonna be a fun part. So the graphics in this game are definitely graphics, alright. So as you can tell with these cutscenes, yeah, they're very over the top and fucking weird as shit, but I love them though. So pretty much, if you love all those like cheesy like rubber suits type of like TV shows, you know, that entire subgenre, then yeah, you pretty much will love this shit. But as for the in-game graphics, it's charmingly fugly. So the sprites in the game are definitely weird as shit looking, and of course they have some weird like animations to them, which makes the game look like it doesn't play well, but it actually does. And the backgrounds are pretty damn blurry, but they're also very psychedelic. Like, look at some of this shit. Like, what the hell's going on here? Like, this is like so bizarre. But probably the most charming thing about this game in terms of looks would have to be in the credits once you beat the game. It actually shows you like the way how they like made this game with like the green screens and everything. I actually thought that was actually pretty fucking cool. And it kind of makes me wish there was a documentary talking about this. I would totally watch it. And I'm pretty sure that they also had fun doing it, so they at least looked like that they had some passion going on. So yeah, in terms of looks, this game has its cool charmness to it that is just very, like, exaggeratedly over the top, but at the same time, it's also kinda ugly. So it may not be the most prettiest game out there, but it at least has something going on for it. And now, as for the game's music, the music in this game is actually pretty fucking awesome, not gonna lie. I really love it a lot. So all the songs have this, like, mystical, like, heavy metalness to them. I really dig it a lot. In fact, there's actually one song in the game that actually has lyrics to it, and it's corny as hell. So as a fan of corny music, I approve. Also, there's actually another song in this game that actually sounds very similar to Carry On Wayward Son from the band Kansas. And ironically, that's actually one of my favorite songs in the game. But I really don't think there's any bad song on the OST. I think they're all really awesome. Although, I can understand why some people wouldn't like the one with the lyrics in it though. But I think all the other ones though, are at least really good. So if you ask me, I find this OST to be very underrated and just really good shit. So now, if you want to go out and buy yourself a copy of this game, if you obviously have a way to play it, and of course the prices probably will change by the time this video is uploaded, I'm sure, is that the cheapest I've seen it for was $30, and the highest I've seen it for was $80. Not sure why there was a drastic change. I mean, they all seem to be complete in box anyways, but whatever. Although one thing that is funny is that one of the listings says that this game is a Dragon Ball game. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Gokuu Densetsu Magic Beast Warriors, is that this is a game that is very much a guilty pleasure of mine, but even with it being a guilty pleasure, I actually still think this game is actually kinda decent for what it is. Like, the gameplay is pretty solid, although isn't the most revolutionary thing ever made, but you know, it plays well enough, and also the game is highly entertaining with its weird-ass cutscenes. And of course, I love the music in this game a hell lot. So, with that said, of course, the biggest flaw with this game is really with the lack of options and just having the game being very bare bones. Even for the year 1995, there's been other games that came before that at least had, like, more modes than this. But even with the lack of modes, I mean, I can put up with it okay, but I do kind of wish that there was like practice or even just a regular ass arcade run where I can pick any character I want from the very beginning. But what's worse than that is really the fact that there's no options, like you can't like change the difficulty setting, you can't change like the number of continues that you're allowed to do. Like, I really wish this game had something like that. But other than that, I mean, there's really no other real complaints with this game, other than the fact that it is, like, a pretty fugly looking game, and well, I can see some people being turned off by that. But as for me though, I actually don't mind the ugliness too much of this game because, well, first of all, like, graphics doesn't mean everything, and secondly, at least this game is memorable. Unlike some other games out there where they just all look the same with their brown and gray and all that type of shit. You know, I've talked about that like millions of times, but yeah, at least this game is memorable with its wackiness. And I can tell that there was a lot of effort that was put into the costumes that were made for the game's cutscenes. So would I recommend it? Well, it really depends on the person. Like, if you want a goofy-ass fighting game that you can just make fun of and, like, experience the weirdness of it, then I'd say yes, because at least the game will be entertaining for that reason. But if you're not that good at fighting games and you want a reasonable challenge, then I wouldn't recommend it because this game can get really frustrating. And plus, with some of the issues that I mentioned earlier, can be a turn-off for them as well. But to me, I like it, although I mostly like it for the weirdness though, and the fact that the game actually does play pretty decently well, but yeah, it is a game that is mostly a guilty pleasure though. And before we end it, I do have one funny thing I have to mention, is that there is an anime series called High Score Girl that came out in fairly recent years about a bunch of kids playing fighting games together as they're growing up. It's actually kind of a cute, fun show, I'm not gonna lie, even though it is a genre that I'm not crazy about. But the thing that surprised me was that there was a part in episode 10 of season 1 where they actually briefly mentioned this game, and I was like, holy shit. Was never expecting a game like this to get mentioned there. Well, anyways, here's a soundbite in case you don't believe me.
What games do you have for it? Tell me!
Myst and Tekken. Gokuu Densetsu Magic Beast Warriors.
Ooh, you've got good taste in games, alright!
Yeah, my dad bought them all for me.
Well, I think we all know who's getting Father of the Year award. Well, anyways, I just had to mention that because I just thought it was hilarious. So that's all I gotta say on this goofy, weird game that I strangely kinda like. So with that said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.